One of the most important questions I've ever asked wasn't in a classroom or during my doctoral research. It was at a small community center in New York City. Every person who walked through the doors was greeted the same way. Hi, welcome. What brings you here today? It seems like such a simple question, but over time I realized it changed everything. It gave people permission to define their own relationship with the community before we asked anything of them. I've come to believe that meaningful dialogue begins long before people start talking. It begins when people feel they belong. One of the most radical acts of leadership is making another person feel they belong before they've had to prove they deserve to. That belief has shaped my work as a researcher, educator, and community organizer. Whether I'm teaching students from around the world, conducting research on leadership, or bringing together strangers through community initiatives, I'm always asking the same question. How do we create spaces where people feel welcomed enough to become curious about one another? That question inspired my project proposal, Threads of Dialogue. Participants will bring one item of clothing that changed their life. Not because clothing is important, but because every meaningful object carries a story. A wedding dress, a work uniform, a favorite pair of dance shoes, a jacket worn during migration, a sweater knitted by a grandparent. These objects help us begin conversations that otherwise might never happen. Participants will use AI to help translate, organize, and preserve their stories, but never replace them. AI becomes the bridge. Human connection remains the destination. Together, we'll build a growing community of storytellers where each participant invites someone from a different background into the next conversation, creating not just an event, but a dialogue, methodology that communities around the world can adapt using clothing or any meaningful object to foster understanding across cultures. Because community cannot be manufactured, it can only be invited. I've spent my career exploring one question. How do we design spaces where people feel welcomed enough to become curious about one another? I'd be honored to continue exploring that question with UNESCO.